Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to talk about some basic overall strategies with this current sentiment in the market, which is at an all-time low, right? Sentiment is extremely low. We're going to talk about as to most likely what the possible reasons are, different strategies to kind of combat that, and just overall good practices into how to sustain in this market, right? How to sustain during when sentiment is the way this is, everything's going to zero, etc., etc. So we're going to talk about just basic overall strategies and kind of my outlook and why I'm still continuing to grow even in this climate, even in this market, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. So sentiment is borderline almost all-time low, right? Not only from like people in the community, but just even other like content creators and stuff, right? I'm sure you're seeing it in a lot of the videos. And just in general, even just a lot of people aren't making too many videos anymore currently, and it's just because of that, right? As soon as you talk about any kind of like positivity or anything mining related, it's extremely like, just do this, it's garbage, it's people buying shovels and all those stupid things that we hear over and over. And that this channel we've been hearing over for the past 2 years, right? So gonna talk about as to why that is and why are people letting themselves get burnt out, right? To me, the biggest thing though, you have to keep things simple, okay? If they do not make sense to you, do not buy it, right? I know a lot of people are getting burnt out with all these ASIC releases, like, they're coming out every week, who know everybody's going to zero, blah, blah, blah. And I get it, right? So if it doesn't make sense to you, then just don't buy it. Like, it's that simple. Buy the coin, or if you're, worried that the market's going to go to zero, then just get out, right? At this point, keep things simple. Keep your goals simple. And if you still haven't set goals, which is something we've talked about on those portfolio videos that I've been doing for the past like 2 years, it's set goals, guys. Like narrow down the amount of coins you're into, narrow down to the ones that you're super confident about, ones that maybe are on the riskier side, like set up percentages, set up goal amounts, right? So I have different set goals amount for each coin that I'm into, and I have it reduced. I'm trying not to be the guy into like 50 different coins. I have it set into high confidence plays, mid confidence plays, highly speculative plays, and kind of go from there, right? In terms of investing. In terms of mining, and this is one that it's been getting a lot, and I get it. It's very confusing. It kind of doesn't make sense, but it's just a strategy that works for me. And a big part of it is just the strategy portion alone. Okay, like for example, for me, one big thing I hear over and over and over again, you're never going to ROI on that unit. So my perception of that is completely different. Okay, reason being is that I don't ROI individual units. I'm not tracking each individual unit up there. I combine my farm as a whole and use that revenue to continue to grow into other avenues, right? So depending on what I'm looking for at the time is going to dictate what hardware I'm going to hyper focus on. Okay, so like, and even with like those AL0s, that yes, those probably weren't the best buys in a sense, but they were for me, and they still are, right? The value proposition is still there. They're still going to be profitable, hopefully even through the entire bull market. Okay, so again, my strategy though is I run my whole operation as a single thing, right? So I take my revenue from the Caspa ASICs, the CKB ASICs, the Cadena ASICs, the Aletheum ASICs, the Handshake ASIC, the Caspa ASICs, the DePIN devices, my Hive Mapper, the Helium IoT, Helium Mobile, DIMO, Sword Chain, like all those different things all get lumped into one, and that's how I view my income. Okay, so like if I'm worried about ROIing one of those $700-800 units, then it takes me about 7 days to pay off that unit. Okay, so like in 7 days, for example, if I wanted to, I could add another one. Another 7 days, pay off another one. I don't view it that way. I just view it as a way to grow, and that's just a strategy that has worked for me, that I've been doing for nearly going on almost 4 years now. This whole thing started from one little 1660 Super, okay, back in the heyday of GPUs. That thing paid itself off. Oh, pretty cool. Let me get a 3060 Ti. That one paid itself off. Let me get another one. That one paid itself off. Now using those 3, now I'm able to pay those off even quicker. Now I get another one. Now I have 4. And then I have 10. And now those 10 on the in like a matter of days, I can pay for another one, and I can pay for another one. And it's just been a snowballing thing. And then I'm using those existing hardware. This is the thing that people are losing, is that hardware, this is where you're taking the risk, is that it may have value in the future also. So that's kind of where my play has been, and that's what's been working for me. Okay, so like even with those, again, those GPUs paid themselves off multiple times over, and then use those existing GPUs to buy the first set of ASICs that I had. So again, even those first set of ASICs were already paid off essentially because it was the revenue from those GPUs. Not even the revenue, it was from the hardware aspect, from selling that hardware, just turning it into ASICs essentially. And now those have paid themselves off, and then now I can sell those again for more revenue, right? And it's just kind of snowballed into what it is now. But it's not from looking at individual ROI units, it's just from scaling and growing in that capacity. So that's why when I constantly say like my viewpoint's going to be different, this is why, right? I'm not ROIing a single unit. And then when I'm looking at different things, it's strategically, right? So even like the AL0s, kind of doesn't make sense again for most people, which I mentioned. For me, it does though. The reason I am looking for low power alternatives in case things do get squirrely, the market goes sideways for an extended period of time, I need to continue making that revenue. I have revenue goals that I want to hit on a monthly basis. And if, Kadena tanks again and it gets unprofitable and I got to unplug that unit, I'm not making revenue on that unit, right? So these guys will though, right? It's kind of a hedge against that. So I'm continually building that revenue. Okay, so I'm saying you have to kind of come up with your own plan, your own strategy, whether it's like investing strategies, mining strategies, it's all different things. So that's why my focus currently has been primarily on these low power devices. So that's why, yes, I did buy the AL0s. And yes, I'm going to be buying at least one AL2 to lower the cost basis of those guys. Okay, and if the price gets reduced from $1,200 on the AL2 down to $600, I'll probably buy another. Okay, that's just the way I'm scaling, the way I'm growing, because I'm pretty much to a point where I'm just about maxed out anyway. As far as the big ASICs go, this may be it for me. Time will tell on that front, but you have to come up with that game plan. You have to just overall simplify things, right? This is not just a willy-nilly kind of thing like last minute. It's like I saw the opportunity, it made sense, that's exactly what I was looking for, that's exactly what I'm continuing to look for, and that's what I'm going with. Okay, so make a plan, guys, and then stick to that plan. If things change though, then yes, you do have to adapt with the market. But like for example, right now people are talking about selling their AL0s they just purchased at like a 50% loss because of the release of this AL2. That to me, absolutely not. These things are still profitable. They're still the same chips, so same efficiency levels. So that value proposition from now in the next 12 months is still there. The difference being is the hash rate is probably going to accelerate a little bit faster because of that release, but the same value proposition is still there, right? So it's kind of to each their own on that thing. I get it. Some people want to exit out, and that's fine also. Okay, maybe you want to exit out and just buy the coin. That's also a thing. And that's another thing also, don't put yourself in one box or the other. Don't put yourself, okay, I can only mine that coin, I can only buy that coin. Do both, right? I do both. Whenever I see a good opportunity, like for example with the lithium, it's a little bit harder for me, and this is why I keep saying that it needs to be under $1 for me, is because we've been accruing for this whole time back here, right? So to me, it still seems possible that yes, although $1.60 is low from the $4 it was, it still seems somewhat possible that we can potentially retrace back here. Something catastrophic happens, or a ton of sell pressure happens, or who knows. Like, there's still risk, in my opinion, that things can get squirrely and things go back here. So even if you're buying right now at $1.70, okay, what happens if we do go back down to here? Because again, this wasn't that long ago. Back down to under $1, back to 80 cents, 70 cents, 20 cents, right? Which is around the time I was accruing. It's hard to pay. I know it seems super cheap to some of you guys, but again, if you've been accruing this thing for the past 2 years, it's extremely high. So that's why for me, it needs to be under $1. I feel comfortable mining it though, because at that point, it's the hardware still there, and that's where the viewpoint is on that. But there's going to be times where it's going to be different, right? And we'll get into a perfect example of this a little bit later. Okay, but you have to come up with that strategy. You have to see what makes sense. And again, if the mining thing doesn't make sense, don't mine. Don't buy the ASICs, right? You can wait until things do uptick. Right now, The reason a lot of us are still purchasing is because we're kind of betting when the market's going to flip. Which, if we go by the current cycle, it can be as soon as the next few weeks. Okay, things are lining up as far as, like, if you're looking at different charts, different theories, things are still in play for what typically happens in the cycle. So whether or not it happens now, if it gets delayed 2-3 months, I don't know. I just know I'm convinced that it's going to happen. It can happen at any given moment, and it's going to happen like that. So the bet we're placing in now with buying the hardware is trying to get in before things do flip. Because again, it happens like that. 1 minute, yes, a lithium can be at $1.66, but I mean, you can even see here, back when it was 20 cents in November, and then that same month it did a 3x. It went up to 62 cents. Okay, all within a few weeks. Okay, so that's like going from $1.60 to almost $5 here in a few weeks. If a lithium goes to $5-6, that does change things pretty drastically in terms of the fiat profitability, which is why I don't focus on that. I focus on the yield and what that yield will potentially be worth. Like, for example, right now, I know everybody's crying because, oh, the yield zeros are down to 1. I was expecting us to be down to half an alpha by now, right? So in my opinion, still doing all right. And if I'm valuing that alpha at like $15 an alpha, half an alpha, $7.50, I'm good with that. Maybe it goes beyond that. Maybe it doesn't even do that. Maybe it only goes to $10. Maybe it only goes to $5. Who knows? But that's the risk I'm taking, right? And these are the things you have to understand, is that all these things are going to be risks. They're going to be calculated risks. The more risks you take, though, you're increasing your odds of at least one of them hitting. And sometimes that's all it takes. Okay, like for example, with me, the big winner for me, at least in this bear market, was Caspa. Planting those little seeds, couple $100 here and there, but being early, that one paid off, and just paid off massively. Okay, and even in terms of mining it also, this is another thing that everybody's super bearish with it. Like, oh, it's whatever. You can have your opinions on it, and I get it. But again, my viewpoint is different. And even in terms of like the KS5 Pro, and like, oh man, it was $10,000 a few weeks ago. Yeah, and as crazy as it sounds, all that's going to be paid off within like 3-4 months, right? It's the KS3M, which is still profitable because of the more efficient guys, right? That was part of the plan there, was to get the most efficient guys, so that way the KS3M, regardless of where the price action goes, still can remain profitable by, again, combining those units. So I'm not looking at a KS3M and looking, oh, it's barely break even, it's making 50 cents. No, I'm combining the KS3M, the KS5L, and the KS5 Pro as one unit, making 39 terahash at like 8,000 watts, meaning it's still very profitable, and getting the most efficient unit is just extending that profitability period. Okay, and then again, it's all just strategies and kind of where you're at, right? But like even for now, for example, with like KRC20, it's been paying off massively. It's been borderline ridiculous. Like just since KRC20 started, I just added up this morning actually, it's been over 5,000 Caspa that's been mined just since KRC20 started. Okay, that's $826 worth in just a matter of days. Okay, not even 2 weeks. It's crazy. Because then at this point, it's like, okay, if this repeats for another few weeks, right? At that point, 3xing this, let's say it's 6 weeks of that now pays for another KS5 Pro. Okay, and that's kind of like how I see things, how like I view it, right? Again, everybody's strategy is going to be different, and it depends on the extent of your situation, right? And that's why not everybody's situation is going to be the same. Not everybody's plan is going to be the same. Not everybody's viewpoint is going to be the same. You have to come up with your own game plan and what makes sense to you. Okay, and like I said, some pay off, some don't. A good example of one that didn't make any kind of sense at all for the longest period of time but paid off massively was the CKB ASIC, the K7. Okay, this is one that paid off big time. Okay, this is one that you can see here so far. Even right now, I'm just in a low power mode. I'm mining it on 2 hash boards just to kind of save a little power. It's mined over 1.2 million CKB already. Even right now with CKB's price being half of what it was just like 4 or 5 months ago, it's still over $20,000 worth of CKB, right? And it's from just taking some of the risks. Sometimes they do make sense, sometimes they don't make sense. Sometimes that pan out, sometimes they don't. Okay, this is one that did. Even with the cash basics, this whole time everybody's like, no, don't buy, they don't make sense, they don't make sense. It's just recently hit 100,000 cash of mined. Okay, it's 97,000 on here, but then it's like 3,500 on hero miners from when I first started. Okay, and again, that's just from those units, and that's kind of just scaling in those units. Okay, and it's from combining these units. Again, I'm not ROIing or looking at individual units. The KS3M paid itself off. The KS3M also actually paid off the KS5L, and now the combination of the three are paying off the KS5 Pro or just being used to continue to add other units. Okay, and this is just the way I grow. Okay, and again, right now I'm averaging about 9-10,000 CASPA per month. Is it going to continue? I think so, right? Things are only going to get more bullish. Things are only going to get better from here. At this point, the network is so much more mature that, yes, it's likely that if CASPA does what we think it's going to do, it is probably going to double from here. But again, we'd have to go to 2 exahash for the yield to have from that. Yes, there's the 6% monthly reduction every month, and we fully understand that. Okay, but this is the risk we're taking. Okay, and we're going for it, and so far it's been paying off. Okay, so kind of to each their own, and as to whether or not things make sense or not. Like, but I get it. I get people's perspective, and it's all just dependent on your plan. Okay, but not all of these things are going to work out also, though. Like I mentioned, there's some that aren't going to work out, and there's going to be some that are going to make you feel that FOMO, and that just don't make any sense even at time of release. And sometimes they do initially, but then it's like you really look at numbers and it's like, oh, kind of a little too risky, right? One great example is one we just recently talked about in that scams to avoid video that we did not too long ago. And it was regarding just like deceptive advertisement practices from some of the vendors. This one in particular being regarding Bitmars and what they did. Okay, if you guys remember, I had a huge issue with them doing this freaking little advertisement that the RX0 would ROI in 30 days. Again, our beef with it was that we knew that is extremely unlikely. Like even giving him the benefit of the doubt and using the pump number and all those things, it still didn't make sense. And now realistically, now that things have progressed a little bit, again, it still hasn't even shipped yet. Let's look at the updated numbers again before this thing has shipped yet. Okay, currently you're going to be scheduled to make only about 1,500 RXD a day, which is only about $2 a day. Okay, which is why we're so frustrated with them advertising this, because again, if we go by today's price, today's hash rate, which again, it hasn't even shipped yet, it's going to ship here in the next few days, you're down to $60 a month. This thing is not 60 bucks. Okay, it's missing a whole zero as a matter of fact. Okay, so you have to also do your research. You also have to run your numbers. Okay, so even right now, like this is one that just financially, if you're looking at it from an investment perspective, doesn't make sense to buy the hardware. And also it just 100% more sense to buy the coin, and we'll talk about as to why. We'll talk about the difference between this one and the Alephium unit. So in this case, it's only yielding about $1,500 or 1,500 RXD per day. Okay, if we look at the numbers, and if we were to look at RXD as a whole, let's do it even at that low price. Let's say you did get it at $3.99 shipped, right? So this is at $400. It's about 300,000 RXD. Even just eyeballing it, it's 200 days, right? So 1,500, multiply that by the 200, that's going to give you 300,000. So best case scenario, you got it at $3.99. It's still a 200-day ROI. Not too appealing when you can just buy the coin because of the price. Okay, and the difference for me at least regarding price points or whether it's not worth it to buy, the reason I'm more iffy on a Alephium is that this is nowhere near the all-time lows. Okay, to me it's not super likely it's going to go below $1 anytime soon, but it's possible. I mean, we hit $1 not that long ago. Okay, so it is possible still that we do retrace. It is possible that we go from $1.70 down to $1, which would kind of wreck you a bit, right? The difference with Radiant, though, for example, the reason I would feel much more comfortable buying the coin 100% is the fact that it's damn near all-time lows. It's not all-time lows because prior to this announcement, it was like half of what it is now. But it's not too far from there. And then there's still extreme upside with this thing, right? It's barely ranked number 900. I think it's even lower on CoinGecko when you factor in a lot of the other altcoins that aren't listed here. But extreme upside. Versus, again, Alephium is already in the top 300. Okay, still has good upside, definitely for sure. But as far as buying the coin, I would feel much more comfortable buying a coin that's pretty close to all-time bottoms, right? So it's not exactly down here. It was definitely lower back here, but it's not the same level as like where lithium. Okay, so kind of to each their own, and to me, it just has a lot of upside. For me, radiant mining it is just your yields are going to continue to go down because, again, those are your current yields, and this is prior to these things even dropping, right? Which we know they sold out, so they sold extremely well, and we know that there's other manufacturers already making radiant ASICs. Okay, so from that perspective, at 100% makes more sense to buy it. Okay, so, and just like we did that video not too long ago, also doing a mining versus buying comparison, it just all depends on the bottoms and those prices and if you're able to hit those bottoms, right? Which things can change drastically because, again, we're not in the clear yet. Anything can happen, even just like we saw with Cadena in that example, where currently it did pump, right? It went down to like 39 cents though. Using that price point, it 100% make it more sense to just buy the coin. Numbers have changed now just a few weeks since then because recently it's at 65 cents, right? So that changes things drastically. I had a 50% pump. So now it is a massive difference. Okay, so it's all in the timing, whether or not you hit the lows or not, or if you think those are the lows. Like if you are confident and feel as though those are the lows, then for sure buy the coin. Okay, like it just really depends on your strategy and your outlook. Or even better is just not take that huge risk and like, okay, you know, I think this is about, I'm going to buy 10K worth of a lithium. Maybe not the play either. Maybe DCA into it. Right? As you see the market progressing, like, oh man, like even right now, Bitcoin is running. It's doing what it should at this time of the year. But maybe once you flip, maybe once it hits 70, 75K, you're like, oh man, things might start really escalating from here, and maybe that's the time to buy. Or maybe these are just whale games. Okay? You got to understand where we're at in the market and that they know all of us are hyper focused on that. We're, oh, October's coming here. Maybe they pump it just to dump on everybody, have one last final shakeout, go back down to low 50s or something. We don't know, right? That's why the game plan should be long term. Like realistically, I'm not really too concerned what happens in the short term unless I'm trying to buy a major dip. Then that's a little bit different. But for the most part, I already have price points. I have my coins narrowed down that I want. Because I have a small select amount of coins that I'm into, I know those price points. I know what's a good price. I know the likelihood of what price it needs to reach for me to DCA and how aggressively. Like for example, with the lithium, I need to go under $1 for me to even buy any at all. It's one that I would feel more comfortable mining because, again, this is one we've been accruing back here. Okay, and even with Caspa is the one I have not purchased. For me to purchase, again, I have a lot, and realistically, the bulk of my portfolio, it's more than half, it's my biggest holding. It needs to go under like 10 cents for me to consider DCAing, right? It's another one that because of that, I would rather just mine it. Okay, and it's been a successful thing for me. Okay, and it just really depends on your price point. But again, my focus has been on just strategy, right? So as far as the big boy ASICs, I'm good. My GPUs are still there. I'm kind of still debating on getting rid of them, but they're still there. They're off. I don't even have a mining right now. Ideally, kind of maxed out on power, so I'm looking at very efficient, very low power items. So that's why the AL0s are appealing. And that's why a lot of these DePIN things have been so appealing. So if you guys caught that demo video, that's why that was a very appealing unit. Something that, again, is $150, and it's something that requires no power. The only investment is the $150 into the unit, and its chances are can do fairly well, right? Like this is one that has a lot of upside, has a lot of potential. This thing is a tiny market cap, ranked number 616, has a lot of room to run. Even if it just reaches the previous bear market highs, the nice little jump, right? Nearly a 3.5x just from there alone. Okay, so it's one that has potential. As things run up, the thing is right now though is that people they're not super interested because of the price action and the current profitability. But then they wait until this happens, and then guess what? It's sold out, and now on eBay it's going for 2, 3, 4 times as much, as we saw with like the Hive Mapper. The Hive Mapper, I think, is one of those that got super crazy because when the price did go up, it went from being a $200 camera back here during this boring time up to a $2,000 camera. Okay, and those are the types of things that you're looking for, and that's why it's important to be early, look for those opportunities, especially like these super low price things. Like this is one that's extremely appealing. Even another one, again, for the 70 of you guys who are into helium, is even like the IoT thing. This is the funny thing, is that to this day, as far as like price of the unit and how much it has returned, I don't think anything's going to top this thing, right? It was like 200 something bucks nearly 3 years ago. It made a stupid amount of money back then. I think it ended up cashing out like over $4,000 worth of helium. And then it's still profitable 3 years later. Okay, it's still making like almost $1 a day. From what? 10 watts of power? Something that I forget even exists at times. Like I've done all these recent helium videos and not once have I even mentioned this thing. I literally forget about it. Okay, it doesn't need to get reset, like nothing. It just runs, it just accumulates. Okay, and there's just, it's crazy because even this one, just again following the project, like when the migration happened, became extremely profitable because when the Solana integration happened, what happened with the price? The price went up, skyrocketed. So before this, actually, it was in the spring. And this was also when helium's price was at all-time lows, like $1.40, $1.50. So because of the migration, if you're converting the IoT to HNT, you are making like an HNT per day. Okay, look at what HNT's price is currently. Okay, so if you're doing that during these times, during when that integration happened, because you were paying attention, you were following the project, it's returned a stupid amount of money. Okay, which in this case, in this bear market, it's made over like 1,500 bucks, right? Which again, it's a project that everybody's like, it's garbage, I'm throwing mine in it's 10 watts, bros. Like, it seems crazy to me that you wouldn't just have it plugged in. Like, even if you hate HNT, like, you know what? It's garbage, IoT's garbage. Like, I personally don't believe in IoT as far as price appreciation goes, just because I don't see the potential as much with like Helium, the token as a whole, or even Helium Mobile, because to me, it's just, it is what it is. Will it run up? Potentially, but I have more confidence in the Helium token, so that's why I swap into it. And that's just what's paid off for me. Okay, and again, it's from following projects and just looking at things and just going into it, right? Like even on the mobile side, like everybody, it's another missed opportunity. Like I made those videos in the beginning, and each one have 3 units, 2 outdoors, 1 indoor. Each one paid themselves off in 30 days. Okay, and it's still the outdoor units, or between the 2 outdoors and the indoor mobile units, it's making 11 bucks a day. Doing what? Nothing. 10 watts of power. It's just constant revenue streams. And at the time, I was like, might make sense, might not, but it's taking the risk and seeing if it works. And nearly a year later of those gains, it's been ridiculous, right? So that's why my focus has been a lot of these things. That's why the DIMO was so interesting. That's why Helium has been so interesting to me. And that's why a lot of these others. GeoNet is another great example of one that has extreme potential. That's one I may not buy a miner, but that's one I'm starting to DCA into. Just because, again, it has extreme potential. Same thing here. Small market cap. A lot of things to look into, bros. Again, it just depends on your strategy, depending on what you're doing, depending on how you're playing things. But at the end of the day, the easiest thing is to make a game plan and simplify things. Stop chasing things. Like if it's getting stressful for you, you're overthinking it. Okay, simplify things, DCA into things, look at different projects, narrow those projects down, and set goal amounts. Okay, if you want. Like, it depends on your viewpoint. Like, some people would rather have 50 different tiny positions of different like coins, and that's totally up to you. I would rather have it narrowed down and have higher concentrations in those coins, and coins that I feel will do well. That way, if they do pop off, I maximize, right? But as I get my allocation of that one coin, I go to the next one. Now I add another one. Depending on where I'm at, sometimes it's just adding more into a safer play or a higher confidence play, or it's okay, I'll start a new bag of this other spec coin, right? So like right now, my targets are certain ones that I've been accruing through mining, but now I'm going to start DCing into a little bit heavier. One is going to be DIMO, another one will be like GeoNet, for example. Those are next two on the radar to just start DCing into and start getting a nice little bag of those, just because I feel they will do well. Small market cap, a lot of interest. Those are just what I'm eyeing. That doesn't mean that it's a good deal. They can go to zero. They can do whatever. You have to find out your niche, your expertise, what you think works. Whether it's mining things, again, my focus is heavier on like the mining and passive income side because that's where my focus is already. And I'm very into those projects already. So I'm very hyper focused on those things. But if you're a person who's more into gaming, into proof of stake coins, into degen coins, into meme coins, then follow your niche, right? Follow what you're into, because as you like consolidate and narrow down your coins, you're going to start seeing things that like, okay, this is probably coming, so I'm going to go a little bit harder into this. You're going to be able to see those trends. You're going to be able to see those things. Like, for example, with the mining coins, a lot of the play with the lithium or even RXD, people are buying into it, is the ASIC play, is the fact that it's extremely likely that these manufacturers at some point in the future are likely to pump these things. And that's where the speculation comes in. And that's why they pump as soon as these miners are announced. Okay, because again, because they're extremely small market caps, it doesn't take a lot to pump the coin, especially when the market is already pumping in general. Okay, so it's not going to pump out of nowhere. Chances are they wait until something happens and then go from there, right? So they'll jump onto an existing trend. Let's say one of these coins, let's say Caspa gets their Binance listing. That's an excellent time where, because of that listing, people are already going to be FOMOing in, and that's when these manufacturers will probably also be adding to that, okay, to increase that, because they know that's going to also what? Increase the value of those ASICs and increase the value of hardware sales and increase the value of the token overall. Okay, so that's why you do see those pumps. That's why you do see positive action when those miners get announced for those specific coins. Okay, and it's just following the trends. Like I do see something similar eventually happening with DIMO, something similar happening again with HiveMapper and Honey as things pump in the bull market. The thing is, nobody wants to get in when it's boring. They want to wait until it's up here and pay 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times the price. Okay, the key for me is getting in early and stacking during these boring times, during these not profitable times, these 5-year ROI times, which we know that as things progress, because again, when the price goes back up to here, it's no longer a 5-year ROI, and that's why I don't focus on that. I focus on the yield and what that yield could potentially be worth. Okay, so at the end of the day, guys, just make a strategy, try to just simplify things, make things easier, and if it's getting to the point where you're stressed out, get out for a while, go touch some grass. Like, then it's too much. Then at that point, you're overextending yourself, you're unsure, you're being emotional. Okay, as weird as that sounds, and that's the purpose of the goal making. Take the emotions out of it. Okay, just be a numbers person, focus on the thing, focus on the long term. If you think there is a long term, right? I'm 100% convinced there will be a bull market, whether it happens following this cycle and it starts here in a few weeks, or it takes a few months, or it's 6 months from now, 8 months from now. I have a good feeling it's going to happen, right? And it's just my personal opinion of it. You have to determine whether you think it's going to happen, because I get it. People look at the ROI. Oh man, it's this and this and that. It's going to remain crappy if you don't think the price is going to appreciate. Again, as that price appreciates, everything changes. Okay, the key is to get in before that. That's how we had success with the Caspa ASICs. That's how we had success with the CKB miner. That's how we've had success with all these other mining avenues, is getting in when the ROI was never. Okay, so that's why, again, I don't focus on that. That's my strategy. That's what's been working for me. Is it going to work for you? Maybe, maybe not. Probably less likely, because if you're just starting now, I have almost a 4-year heads up on you, right? So, and that's the difference between people coming in now versus people we've already seen this. We've been playing this game for 2 years, right? It's literally been 2 years of the commentary and getting now, oh, it's gonna ROI never. But by not jumping into those things, I would have missed out on mining 100,000 Caspa, mining 20, 30 grand of CKB, mining 10 grand of this, 10 grand of that. It all depends on what you're into, right? But if you don't risk it, you're not gonna get the biscuit. You have to be in there to take advantage of these gains, right? If you're just watching on the sidelines, then you're not gonna get anything. Okay, so it just depends on what your risk tolerance is and what plays you're going to make, because at the end of the day, we don't really know. If we had 100% conviction that Caspa was gonna 100x in this bear market, then I would have gone all in on Caspa and I wouldn't be making videos right now. Like, that's the thing, is that you have to be willing to kind of plant those seeds, like a little bit here. Okay, this one looks promising. I'll throw $100 here. And again, a lot of these gains and like the way I've been growing, it's not from dropping a ton of capital, right? It's been using that capital from just growing, from taking these bets. So again, some of them play out, some of them don't. Some of them will flop. Some of the projects I'm DCing into will go to zero. Like right now, for example, with Handshake, that one's not even a 50-50 now. I think it's almost closer to 70% that thing may just completely flop. That one is on the verge of dying, right? So a lot of these are 50-50, even like Radiant. Like I would feel more comfortable going into Radiant than Handshake, for example. That one's, being in the community, it's pretty... That one I'm gonna have to probably take an L on that one. But again, for everyone that doesn't work, all I need is one to work though, right? And like for me, for example, it was Caspa. Caspa doing its thing opened a lot of doors, right? So kind of to each their own, guys. But let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Have you guys been doing the planning thing? Are you guys just kind of winging it? Are you feeling stressed out? Are you feeling burnt out? Are you getting like overwhelmed by these releases? I mean, if you are, again, just take some of these things into consideration. Exit out, take a break, chill out, do what you got to do, but take care of yourself, right? If you're getting overwhelmed, you're too far in, right? So let me know in the comments, guys, what do you guys think? Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and I am out.